How many of you would consider yourselves to be creative? Raise of hands. Those of you without your hands raised, today I'm going to talk about why you're wrong. But let me start with a question. What's 2 plus 2? Why is the sky blue? Now, you might not know the answer, but those questions do have right answers. But we often fall into the trap of thinking that all answers are right, and every question has a right answer. So let me ask some more questions. Who is the best Doctor Who? Is Nightmare Before Christmas a Halloween or a Christmas film? Now, those don't have right answers, and I'm sure they'll be up for debate. So why do we always think that questions have right answers? Today I'm going to talk about answers, whether right or wrong, and how questions are the key to unlocking your creativity. So when I was at school, I remember we were in a science class and it was the middle of term and we were doing a test about what we'd learned previously. I did the test and I went on my way, not thinking anything about it. But then a few lessons later, the teacher said, I need to speak to you after class. And I remember thinking, okay, 2 things are going to happen. Either I'm in really deep trouble or like I'm an Einstein-level genius. Neither of those things happened. What actually happened is he said that because I did so well in the test, he was bumping me from the middle set I was in all the way to the top set, which I found really surprising because I'm not very good at tests. But when I got to the top set, there's one thing I noticed, is that people were answering questions, and the questions they were answering, they weren't getting right, and they felt the pressure of being in the top set. What they were doing is not remembering the answers. But there were some people in that class that were completely oblivious to any question that was being asked. They weren't experimenting correctly, and they weren't performing how you would think from the top set. But then when it came to tests and mock tests and exams, they were always getting A's and A stars, and they were always the top people in the class. So I remember thinking, how is this happening? What are they doing? Like, can they teach me how to cheat as well as they are? But what was happening is they were just remembering the answers. They were remembering the processes. They were remembering what they should be doing instead of truly understanding. Now, what this means is because we focus so much on scores and assessments and tests in education or in the workplace with reports and catch-ups and one-to-ones with managers, that people focus too much on finding the quickest answer, the quickest right answer they can think of, because that's the approach that's taken. That's what the system is built around. Instead of taking the time to explore lots of different options, it's, oh, if I get this finished, I can come up with the answer, and then we can go on with our day. But it's not as simple as that. A great example of something that isn't as right and wrong is the world we live in. If you think about it, from a young age and in our early life, you're often taught that there's right actions and there's wrong actions, and the world is black and white and right and wrong. But as you get older, you tend to find that it's a lot more grey and blurry and vague. So why is it that we're focusing too much on things being right when we know for a fact that things are grey and blurry? It's one of the reasons I have my Witcher tattoo, because Sapkowski, the author of the Witcher books, wrote a world where your actions and consequences aren't so cut and dry as being this is the right thing to do and this is the wrong thing to do. Characters like Thanos in the Avengers films. Now, some people might see him as a villain, but then others might see him as a hero. There's a lot of Thanos was right things that happened on the internet when the films came out. The Hound from Game of Thrones. Those are all grey characters that are morally grey, and they're not really right and they're not really wrong. They just sort of exist in this middle space. A great example of this decision-making and this morally grey area is this. So anyone who studies philosophy or knows anything about philosophy will see this as the trolley problem. So imagine yourself as the person in question there, in the siding with this trolley or tram coming straight down the tracks with one person and 5 people. What's the quick decision you make? What's the right decision in this scenario? Now, you might have the obvious kind of hero debate, which is the many over the few, and say, okay, well, you turn it down the tracks with the one person, and then the 5 people are saved because that's more people. But what if the one person is a family member or a friend? Is it then the morally right decision to choose the one person because you know them more, or is it still the 5 people? There's lots of different variations to this. This is a great example of there not being a right answer. And sometimes the right answer is that there isn't a right answer. But in the work and in education and in the whole system, you learn that answers are often more important than questions. And people who are creative and come up with creative solutions might see themselves as not as smart or intelligent as other people because they might not be getting high grades. They might not be getting their reports done correctly because they're trying to come up with creative solutions rather than coming to the first right answer. So I've talked about the world being grey and I've talked about the trolley problem, but I bet you're thinking, what is someone who may be quite young, they've not had the experience of learning about answers, they're still questioning everything. How would they tackle the trolley problem? Well, let's see. So this is a dad that's given his child the trolley problem with some Thomas the Tank Engine toys. He's going to approach it in a very creative way. So for a start, he moves one of the people, which you could say was cheating, but we'll allow it. So he has a clear track on the other side. But instead of doing that, he decides he wants to take them all out and then finish them off for good. That's not exactly a great solution to that problem, but you can't argue it's not a creative one. So how do we become as creative as the kid in that video? It's about questioning. Let me start with a question. Why doesn't the sun go to university? Because it has 1 million degrees. Jokes and humor are a great start for creativity. Why? Because they're icebreakers. They break the tension. Why? Because they put people at ease. Why? Because they're informal, they break the ice, they're lighthearted, and they're a great source of creating bonds for collaboration. Why? I see what's happening here. This is the why game, where every question and every decision is always why? Why are we doing that? Why is that happening? Anyone with kids might be familiar with this. But if you think back to when you were a child, you used to question everything. How is that done? What's that? Why is it done that way? Adults should do it more often. Don't really, it's annoying. If we look at these two gentlemen, Socrates and Plato, who are both Greek philosophers, yeah, we're back on philosophy again, they came up with a concept of, I'm reading this word for word because it's very wordy, it's only through continual questioning and refinement of our ideas and thoughts in discussion with others that we discover the true nature of what we truly value and hold dear. Now, it's very wordy, but what that basically means is question everything, because questions are what drive creativity. Something that's used in workplaces and in school environments is called Socratic questioning, which is derived from Socrates himself. It's about taking your preconceived beliefs and ideals, and even some very simple concepts, and questioning them down into a level that you might not have thought of before. So let's go for a simple example. How do we know something is a chair? Now you might think, oh, okay, it has 4 legs. That's what makes something a chair. But then so does an elephant. Okay, It's made of wood and it has 4 legs, but then so does a table. If you Google search chair, this is one of the images that comes up. It's not made of wood. It's not got 4 legs. And yet that's still a chair. Why is that a chair? Is it because you can sit on it? You can sit on a lot of things that probably aren't chairs. It's this sort of questioning that comes up with creative ideas and can help generate discussion and debate. You can do more high concept ideas as well, like what is peace and what is freedom? Now, when I asked at the start about putting your hands up if you feel like you're creative, there were a lot of hands, which is great, but then there were some that didn't put their hands up. And despite what you may think, everyone is creative. It's not about the job role you're in. It's not about the environment you're part of. It's not about one side of your brain being bigger than the other side of your brain. That is all fake news. I'm not going to do an impression. But creativity is a skill that you can learn and improve and develop. But people don't see themselves as creative. They see it as this elite club that only creative people can be a part of. But an important part of creativity is failure. You have to be able to fail to become creative. Every question you ask might not come to the amazing $1 million idea. But if you continue to answer questions and you continue to be creative, you'll stumble down avenues that you might not have thought of before. And you won't ever get down those avenues if you settle for the first right answer or the second right answer, because you're not going to continue to question and continue to search for more answers. So go out, ask all the questions, the weird ones, the stupid ones, the outside of the box ones, the crazy ones. Every question is valid and it should be asked. You just have to remember that sometimes asking questions is more important than finding answers, and the wrong answer might just be what you're looking for. Thank you.